Hey guys, D2 Live time again. I'm joined as always by four-time National Road title winner John Trevorrow. How are you, Iffy?
I'm very well, Daniel.
And Olympic gold medalist Scott McGrory. Scooter, you've changed your jerseys again in the background.
I have, yeah. So I've still got the Tinkoff jersey from signed by Peter Sagan as world champ, but then I've mixed it up with, because it's the Giro, I've brought out my signed jersey to me. I've always, I don't want these things to
it's
sell
good
them.
you clear. It's good you clear it up that it's written to you, because that makes a huge difference.
It does to me, because I wanted them to sign it to me. But that's Alberto Contador, the controversial one, when after 2010 positive test to clenbuterol at the Tour de France. The next year, 2011, he wasn't sure if he was going to be riding the Tour de France, so he went into the Giro just in case to get a race in before he got banned, possibly.
Yep.
And then he won the Giro, and then they gave him a ban, backdated it, and stripped him of that Giro victory as well. So I've got a jersey signed by the guy that didn't win.
Well, that's why you shouldn't have got him to make it out to Scott. You would have had a chance to sell it on eBay.
Well, I don't want to. I don't have. I've got a couple more to go, but so I'll be posting them. But I didn't get too many people to sign jerseys, and I wanted it to me. So maybe I'll sell it to the highest bidder that's named Scott in the future.
Oh, we'll put your bids online tonight in the comments. We're lucky to be joined by another superstar of world cycling, better known now for her exploits as a commentator during the Tour de France, Dr. Bridie O'Donnell. Bridie, thanks for joining the D2 again. How you been? Have you recovered from the Tour de France? Is your time zone back on track?
Nah. Garbage.
Still cooked? Have you had a chance to check in and have a look at much of the Giro so far?
I've just been watching the highlights in the mornings or catching up on social media, or when I'm not sleeping at 2 a.m. I check out what's going on. So, yeah, it's been very interesting.
Well, it was a big stage last night for the man, Alex Dowsett, and he was quite emotional after the finish. Let's have a look at Alex after his amazing win.
I don't know. Just sheer determination. I think this year's been so hard. I have a baby on the way in January, and I don't have a job for next year currently, so I needed this so badly, and I can't believe it. Chanel and I have worked so hard this year just to be the best I can be, and my team, Matthias, today was instrumental. I think if he wasn't in the break with me, there's no way this would have happened. And Nikki, Rick, Davide, Rudy, Danny and Alex, all the riders in this team here in the Giro we're such a good bunch of guys, and we try every day to win, and I just can't believe it.
Is it better than winning a time trial?
Yeah, it is. It's because just that anticipation at the end. I'm like, I just don't know how it's going to go. Like, even 5K, and Nicky comes down the radio, it's like 36 seconds, and it wasn't until 2K, and he said you're still at like 40 or something. I was like, I don't believe it.
Great stuff. How good sport. And particularly when you hear that he didn't have a contract for next year, he's having a baby, all the elements, Iffy, you want in a stage victory.
Exactly. But also that's his first big win for the year. It's the team's first win in a Grand Tour. And it's his second Giro win. He won in 2014, he won the time trial, beating Bradley Wiggins. So that was a pretty impressive win as well. But it's going back a long while.
54 kilometres was that time trial, John. So not just a simple little ride down the park, pretty long time trial. And seventh in the stage was a guy named Cadell Evans. So some pretty big scalps to Dowsett. And it's 9 years since he last won a road race, a race that wasn't a time trial. So extraordinary. Hopefully he gets a contract for next year.
It must, Bridie, put a lot of pressure on these riders when it's the last big race to do something when you don't have a contract the following year.
Yeah, don't you reckon we saw that last week as well, when we saw Jay McCarthy crashing into that barrier during the Liège-Bastogne-Liège and Van Avermaet crashing after him? Jay got straight back on, and there was all this sort of talk of Bora saying, no, he's fine. He doesn't have a contract for next year either. He hasn't raced as much as he would have liked. That story that Alex told about he and his partner and she's pregnant, these guys and the women, they have lives outside of this, and we often just see the highlights package. We see them on a podium. But this year in particularly, I think, has brought a lot of the riders' stories closer to the fans, and that's a good thing. I think people realise the commitment and sacrifice involved. So a great outcome, but for every Dowsett winning a stage, there's just dozens or scores of riders that are not getting what they need and want out of the season.
And then you throw into the mix the teams that don't know their own future. You've got two of the big teams that don't know if they're going to get a sponsor. That obviously adds another element of pressure. Scooter, what are they got to do moving forward to sort of even this keel? You can't just keep having teams falling over year after year. It's not a sustainable model, particularly in the current climate.
No, look, absolutely. And this has been the age-old argument, hasn't it? So the challenge we've got is it's a sport that's ruled by the International Cycling Union. They want to have control of the sport, but it's really run, the full power of the sport is with ASO, the Tour de France organisers. They have all the big money from the television rights of the biggest annual sporting event in the world. They won't come together. And the riders, in the meantime, have no say whatsoever, as we've already discussed in previous episodes throughout the Giro here, that the Riders' Union doesn't exist. They've got something that is penciled down as a union, but it doesn't really have any say. So until we get one proper organisation that really does want to distribute all of the funds and the broadcast rights throughout the teams, then we're not going to have any sustainable model, and teams will keep falling over.
And it's also frustrating that the preference for these grand tours, like the Giro, should be to free-to-air television. Get as many eyeballs on it as possible, because if you start limiting that, then it really hinders how quick you can grow the sport. That must be frustrating as well, Bridie, given that, it's a second biggest grand tour of the year, and people can't see it for free.
And look at the feedback around the women's Giro as well. That this was an extraordinary race with some really difficult stages, we have to say, and some particularly, let's say, for what happened with Annemiek and Spratty, is that making the race hard or making it challenging and then not broadcasting it means that the riders are subjecting themselves to a really difficult experience. Not that it's physically hard, but if you don't have an ability for motorbike cameras to follow someone when they're crashing, or you can't even have a team car on the road because it's narrow and dusty and dirty, you're actually compromising the safety of the riders. But they don't have any choice. And for the women's Giro, they've got to do what they've got to do to be in the biggest race. So Scott's right about this lack of autonomy and choice that the riders have. And even, they're desperate. They're like actors queuing up and doing auditions in Hollywood over and over again, just hoping and hoping for a big break or a big season. And most riders are only on 1 or 2 year contracts. So they're just kind of every year they get to that July, August period. And this year has been even harder, with less chance to prove what they're good at or how great they're riding.
Well, I noticed with the Giro Rosa, they didn't even contact the UCI to say that they weren't going to be broadcasting it live. And so since then, they've had their race, the World Tour status taken away from them for next year.
I know, and that's just super disappointing. It's for the riders, for the race organisers, for Italian cycling, particularly as a sort of showcase to the world. I think, look, I have to be critical of the UCI. I think they should be able to be criticised. They're the governing body. One of the things I found really mind-blowing during the Women's Giro is that there would be someone tweeting from the UCI handle and they'd say, we think there's a kilometre to go. And I just think, wow, this is incredible that you've got teams that were sort of periscope or broadcasting the end of the team time trial just so that we could get to see the best women in the world. Imagine if that was happening at the French Open or the US Open. Our minds would be blown. We'd say, this is not good enough. So you're right, Iffy, this idea around the disconnect between an event organiser, the governing body, and then the teams with the money or the ASO, why aren't they sitting at a table and saying, what's the best for the sport? What's the best way to broadcast the great performances of these athletes? And how can we do that in an efficient way that the consumer, the fan, the spectator gets to see?
Well, there's another big gremlin in the closet, and that's COVID-19. We caught up with Sports Director Matt White early today. We thought we'd play out this interview. It's in a couple of different parts so we can discuss what he's talking about. And while we're doing that, John, could you please turn your light on? It's like you're sitting in the dark, mate. Thanks, mate. Cheers. Sports Director Matt White, just tell me, yesterday was less stressful than the other days. Did you have a good one?
We did. It was a pretty uneventful day for everyone except for the 6 guys up the road in the breakaway. And after the 24 hours before, it was a nice. No news is good news. And yesterday was a quiet day. And obviously, after the stress of the day before, was a day that we needed. And
everyone got tested and all clear. So onwards and upwards.
For another 24 hours anyway. So we got our second round. We got our second round of testing. So what they're doing here with us is because of Simon's positive, the whole organisation is getting tested 3 days in a row, and then and obviously if we have any issues, then we'll make a decision after that. But one more round of testing tonight, and then nothing for a week. But obviously if people develop symptoms, we can ask for special tests. But so far so good, mate.
There's been quite a bit on the net, of course, with riders complaining that they don't feel that the organisation has taken it quite serious enough with the whole bubble situation. What's been your feedback from outside your own team?
Oh, look, I think the organisation. Look, I spoke to the organisation at the start of the race, and the organisation. I think the organisation's done well. The problem is the mentality of the people that we're dealing with in hotels. And look, it wasn't. It's not just here. I saw in the Dauphiné pre-Tour de France. You look. I had a couple of looks inside the kitchens, and all the kitchen staff had their mask around their neck. They didn't have them over the cover of their face, and even at the Tour de France. There was times there where you would see the hotel staff would have their mask on as soon as they got away from the people. They just pull it down. Like and that does not fall on the organisation. That's the mentality of a culture. That's the mentality of a culture of people, and I think that's why we're seeing so many cases. Well, I think my doctor just told me before that France had 25,000 positives yesterday in one day.
Staggering, isn't it? Staggering.
And that's a mentality of a culture that does not fall on the race organisation. So I don't follow social media or what the riders are saying, but I think it's a bit unfair to judge the Italian culture off the organisation from the Giro.
The only thing you touched on was that sharing a hotel with the general public is got lots of other issues. Whereas it would have been much smarter just to put teams in the hotels. And be overflow, of course, but that way with no public, it should have been maybe the number one agenda.
No, I agree. And look, at the moment we're at a hotel, just us and Quickstep. We have a different floor for eating. There is nobody in that floor except for everyone in Mitchelton-Scott. Quickstep have the same on a floor above, and I haven't seen anyone staying at this hotel besides people who are involved in the bike race. Sicily was another story. Our opening hotel in Sicily, we had 5 teams staying at the same hotel. We had the whole of the RCS, which is the race organisers, and then we had family holiday makers, all sharing the same eating area. So I agree. I think it should have been a little bit easier, and funny as it sounds, like even if you are going to share with other teams, why not keep those 2 teams together for the whole race? So you're not mixing bubbles.
Yep.
We've got our own bubble here, but why are we rotating team? We spend a lot of time with Ineos, who have a very very strict protocol. Their staff don't even eat inside the hotel; they eat in tents out in the car park.
It's a bit intense. Sorry, mate.
Oh, well, it's going to be a bit cold in the next week. I'll tell you that.
Well,
why not keep the teams together? And I agree. I think the general public, the general public should be far away from us, because the general public. Now, I've had 6 COVID tests in the last 12 days. The person going to that buffet in Sicily, normal people with no symptoms are not getting tested. So it does become very, very hit and miss.
That's part what? one of the chat with Matt White. Now, John, next time we chat with someone, don't have a pen and just click it. You're clicking a pen the whole way through. It's right next to the bloody microphone. Anyway, here's part 2. Apologies for the pen. So knowing what they know now, well, that just has to be the rule moving forward for the remainder of the Giro. Don't have general public mixing in areas where there's riders and staff. Full stop.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense, Jonesy. It does make a lot of sense. But let's just hope they do that. Look, we when we have areas where we have to meet general public, we demand our own buffet. We don't go anywhere near. Yeah. We don't go anywhere near the buffets from the general public. And even one hotel, the hotel in Sicily, we were in a semi-segregated area, but it certainly wasn't our own room. It was just one part of the room, and they put up a little bit of barricades that the general public couldn't come close to us. But no, we're making a big effort, but it'd be nice for the organisations to be a little bit more stricter and just enforce that on the hotels.
You know who you need?
Matty,
before you go, Joe, you need to call one man who is really good with his hygiene, particularly cutlery. You need to bring back Dave Zabriskie.
Well, he wouldn't have left his room. He wouldn't have left his room on the tour, mate. Well, he probably would have faked an injury to even come to a bike race during the pandemic.
That's right.
Have you heard from Simon today?
I haven't this morning, mate. It's only 20 past 8 in the morning. I'll send him a message soon. He would probably be still asleep. But yesterday, last night, I spoke to him. I dropped his breakfast off yesterday. Our doctor spoke to him last night. His mild temperature has now settled down. He feels fine, and I think the best thing for us is that because we asked for that special test for him, and the thing is, no one understands the exact incubation periods for this race. Everyone has different rates of infection. Some people can. I've heard of cases. One of the directors at Ineos, his whole family had COVID. And he was living with them for weeks and never returned to positive. So it's a really weird virus.
Yeah.
But look, I think we had a little bit of luck there because if we hadn't have asked for that special test, we weren't going to get a scheduled test until Monday. So that would be an extra 4 days that actually Simon might have given it to someone else without even knowing.
And racing with it might have got very sick as well.
Exactly. So we have you got to look on a half glass full sort of guy. At the end of the day, it's devastating for us to lose our captain, but at the end of the day, his health is the number one priority, and I think we got to it well. And fingers crossed, no one else has any because the bubble does work. If people have masks on in front of other people all the time, and you are really concentrating on hygiene, the chance of passing that virus on is very minimal. Because at the end of the day, the safest place to probably be in Europe is actually in the bubble that we're in. Because like I said before, the general public won't get a test until they're showing symptoms, and sometimes that's too late. Whereas we're getting tested very, very regularly, and we're paying a lot of attention to what we need to.
Now, I know you've got to nick off shortly, so we'll get down to the other nitty-gritty before Dan asks you the most important question. Today's stage is a real GC stage. I mean, I'm looking at it here. It's a bit like a sawtooth, isn't it? We've got some serious climbing.
It is. I think you'll see a big break go down the road today. I don't know how well Quickstep are going to be able to control today's stage. We could see the race. We could see a new leader this afternoon, or if they do a good job in that first phase of the race before the climbs and only a small group goes away, they might be able to hang on. But the goal for us, if Jack Haig hasn't been 100%, he had some minor stomach issues the last couple of days. If he feels good today, we'll roll the dice and try to put him in the breakaway. But the other one is just if Lucas touched down 2 days ago in that crosswind stage. He was involved in the same crash as Eddie Affini, and he's a little bit sore. But if we can just get Lucas through today's stage in the front, I really think that next week is the easiest week of the race. We've got a rest day tomorrow. We've got a couple of sprint stages, and we don't have another big mountain stage until next Sunday. So I really think that if we can get Lucas through today, that I still believe he can finish in the top 10 and win that white jersey. But we've got to get him through today first.
All right, here's the last part of our chat with Whitey. A couple of minutes ago, and we'll unpack everything he's just talked about. All right, the time's arrived. What was on the menu last night, mate?
Last night was another very ragu pasta.
Oh,
it was a nice one. And the people at the hotel left pepperoncinos that we could dice and put into our own pasta. Not too many went to the pepperoncinos. I had a bit of a lash at it, and it was warm. It was very, very hot indeed. And then as far as our main course yesterday, there was swordfish, which I passed on. I'm a little bit swordfished out of the race at the moment.
Fair enough.
And just had a nice piece of meat.
Did you get a dessert in, or are you off the desserts for a couple of weeks?
I have been off the desserts, but we had a biological red wine, which I've never actually tried. Biological red wine. Biological red wine from this local area. It was a nice one, and even got in a little scoop of ice cream as well, gelato last night as well.
What about they still bringing out the lemonchinos?
No, they're special requests only, Jonesy. They're special requests, the lemonchino. Depends. But when we get a little bit north, it may be into the Liguria area where it's from. They might be a bit more flowing with the lemonchinos, but they're only after special requests.
Well, when you get to the mountains, I think you might as well treat yourself. Nothing goes better in that cold climate than a shot of lemonchino.
Well, I think more once we get through all these COVID tests, I think every night's a celebration at the moment, mate.
And it wouldn't be a little one. Just grab the bottle, off you go.
Mate. It has been stressful. We've got people. It's people's health, and we know that that we have come in contact to a certain degree with Simon. Obviously, some people more than others, but that's why we have the protocols that we have. The guys who've been rubbing Simon. Our guys wear a mask to massage. The person who's rubbing them has a mask on. They change their clothes, the massage therapist, after they rub that person. So all these protocols that we've had over the last 3 months, at the end of the day, they are working. They are working. Then nothing is foolproof. But, at the Tour de France, not a single rider went positive for COVID, only a couple of staff. And fingers crossed, they run similar statistics over the next couple of days when the first set of results come in for the rest of the peloton.
And you can only stress about what you can control. Like, if you're doing all the right things and, you point out when you do see people that you go, oh, come on, mate, wear a mask or whatever. Like, you can't do any much more than that. So No. And at the end of the day, look, it's our health comes first, but there's a lot of people catching the virus in Europe, but as a general rule, the people who are healthy and don't have underlying health problems are not getting really that sick. The death rates are gone considerably down of what they were in March and April. It's 0.2%. Hospitals are empty over here. But the virus is still here, and we've still got to be very diligent. Yeah. Well, fingers crossed. Today's another one that's not high on the stress meter, and you can enjoy that rest day, reset, and gear up for the second half of the Giro, mate.
Yeah, cheers. And look, today it's okay. I'm looking out the window now. It's okay now, but they are predicting pretty average weather for the final today. So I think we're going to be starting in about 18, 19 degrees, but they're predicting 5 or 6 degrees and rain for the last hour or two. So it's going to be a bit of a rude final this afternoon.
All right, mate. Well, all the best. Thanks for joining us again.
Thanks, mate.
Okay, fair bit to unpack. What's your instant takeaways from that, Bridie?
I'm gobsmacked that the race is going ahead. I'm still surprised that the Tour de France finished, and I'm clearly a cycling fan and a lover of the sport, but it just also shows that the teams are focusing on the protection of their riders while tens of thousands of people are getting coronavirus. And if I think about the work I'm doing in Victoria, it's about how do we protect Victorians from the potential infection from international arrivals or interstate arrivals, so that the idea that the focus is on the protection of the riders, and I know they're doing their job, but Whitey's right. It needs to be separate and they need to be a bubble. But my goodness, there's just the fact that the idea that the Vuelta could even commence with what's happening in Madrid is mind-boggling to me.
Well, and also the fact that they were the ones that reached out to get Simon tested. I mean, as he said, he could have had the virus for 3 days and, he could have had, obviously, he had symptoms, so they would have eventually. But the protocols were in place where he'd get tested on the rest day. Like, they didn't actually have to do that.
Sure, but I think it's possible that I'm not disagreeing with Whitey, but maybe they just said, hey, he's got some symptoms. Can he get tested between the scheduled testing dates? So I can't imagine they were banging down the door or trying to convince the testers. If that's the case, then that's a very negative experience for the team.
Well, that wasn't the case. No. He just made the call and they were straight around. Yeah,
alerting them to saying, I know he had a test 36 or 48 hours ago. He's now got a scratchy throat, or I think it was a fever you mentioned. So that's okay. I mean, that's part of what's happening in the general public is that you go when you have a symptom. But the description of mixing teams with the general public is concerning. But also, where should tourists be staying? Don't have the race if you don't want people to come. And that's what we saw. I think it was with Amstel where they said, we don't think we can control the crowd, so we've got to cancel the event. I mean, there's a lot going on that I feel strongly about.
Bridie, question to you about we saw it at the Tour de France. So they waited till the first rest day. So you've got 2 rest days. So at the end of each week, let's all the testing. Does that make sense? Like, it's not an intrusive procedure to do testing. We know where the teams are going to be staying every day. Why wouldn't they be doing it every couple of days just to try and make sure that there is no spread? Because a week's a long time in the COVID world.
My only observation, again, I'm not close to the race directors, but the only reason I can see that they would do it that way is so that they didn't get any positives. I mean, if you don't test people, as per Donald Trump, you don't get positive results. And the fact that no riders tested positive of 182, 176 guys at the start of the tour, and it was just staff, is, to me, says that, they weren't testing people enough. And that meant that the Tour de France finished and everyone got what they needed out of that. Fans, athletes, the French president,
I think there's 2 very separate things here. One, what you're alluding to, Bridie, which I was talking to about with Matty Keane yesterday, is a very different thing. One, I don't think the teams really have a problem. So getting tested 5 times, 10 times, they're not turning up with positives because the bubble seems to be working there. But the real issue is, should you be running a race and dragging people in who are all going to mix together when there's a serious hotspots all over Europe? You're bringing them together. They're then leaving and going back to their towns, and some of them are going to be picking it up. There has to be a serious challenge to the organisations of these races. Why are they happening?
For sure, but we all live in a world where we understand the commercial nature of these events and the obligations and the political lens that is being applied, or a country is desperate to host something and these towns have put their town forward, or the village or the mayor. So the overlay or the pressure that puts on riders, on teams, no teams are opting out, I note. Whitey didn't say, no, we don't want to go because we're worried about the health and safety of our riders. And that idea around boycotting, we talked about this broadly with Black Lives Matters and NBA players. The onus ends up coming back on the player or the rider or the staff when, if the race is cancelled, it removes that pressure on the team or the riders. Now, we know Whitey doesn't want to not show up. We know the riders want to keep racing. We know guys like Dowsett want to win a stage so that they can get a new contract. But it just shows you how the cycle of sport as an industry only benefits a very small, pointy group at the top. And there are a lot of other people who can sometimes be disposable. I mean, let's think back to the beginning of the story, which is Adam Yates has got coronavirus. Now, that sucks. And having known some of the professional athletes who've gotten this in the US, in Australia, some NBL players, they are still suffering. Suffering as in they're healthy enough, but their VO2 max, their respiratory rate, their ability to do push-ups, do sprints across a court, that has been severely limited. So there's a lot of athletes not talking about just how bad it's been on their high performance ability and how long it might take for them to recover.
Well, that was one of the questions that came in from Stuart McIntosh. He said, how likely is it that a young athlete post-COVID diagnosis continues to have issues like fatigue, decreased lung function, etc.? Is there a risk they might not ever get back to the previous fitness level? I mean, obviously the virus is so new, they don't know the long-lasting effects, but from cases, as you said, that they've seen already, there could be. And that's pretty serious. And as you said, like, you're running an event that increases that risk. At what point does someone step up and say, hang on, we've got to shift the priorities here? Particularly, like, what scared me was when Whitey said 25,000 new cases in France alone.
Yeah, on Friday.
Yeah, on Friday. That has to be looked at, and, at some point they've got to say, okay, like, you'd be almost gobsmacked now at this point if the Vuelta was to go ahead.
Well, Spain's got similar type numbers, so it's really bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the race finishes in Madrid, and they're about to go into absolute lockdown for 16 days, I think it is. So if everything goes well, which what's gone well in the COVID-19 era, then the Vuelta will still come into Madrid at the end after the lockdown. The likelihood of that is absurd.
Yeah. I just put it up before. Ian Thomas says, Bridie, on a more important note, love the mood lighting in your kitchen.
Thanks.
So it's all noted.
I'm here 24 hours a day. I've got to do something to mix it up.
They don't miss a trick, because John had some stray blue tack on the back of his, and we pulled him up on that. What do you think they need to do then moving forward for the Giro? Do they need to have a bit of a get together on the rest day and sort of come together and say, look, where we're at, what are we doing here? And if they do decide to go ahead, really tighten up what's happening with these bubbles, particularly once they get to these hotels.
Yeah, I think that's a really quick win. Let's prevent members of the general public or people outside of the race from mixing and using facilities, amenities. That idea about having teams staying with the same teams, that seems like a real simple one. Pair up or triple up the teams so that you're only partnered up with the same group of people. The Ineos guys eating in a tent, that doesn't sound so crazy. I mean, they've been renowned for being a team that brings their own mattresses to hotels and unplugs all of the blue lights so that riders can get better sleep. So these things aren't out of the ordinary for teams that are really organised. What you worry about is the lower teams with fewer staff or fewer soigneurs to drive ahead and do the work. I think what we saw with the Tour de France was there generally was a separation of fans from the start line. There were double barriers, or there were, even on the climbs where there was proximity, there were some people in masks and not, but the riders were moving past them generally pretty quickly, and then they would be going to their buses. So just at least controlling what they can for the next 10 to 12 days will help the teams. That's not going to help the Italians, the members of the general public that are all loitering and not squaring, and to Scott's point about the general behaviour. But I think they can get some quick wins, and surely the race won't want more negative publicity.
Remember a few years ago when Richie Porte and the Ineos team brought a motorhome to the Giro for Richie, so he'd have the same bed, he could unpack everything, and then the UCI was very keen to ban it. They don't look so stupid now in COVID times. They wouldn't even have to go into the hotel if they were in motorhomes.
Do you think that the fact that the riders haven't sort of thrown out that whole "we're going to boycott the race" means that they might not understand the seriousness of COVID? Because
Alex Dowsett is a good example of that. He doesn't want to go home. He wants to race for a contract, and he might have got himself one by winning the stage yesterday. So that's that level of desperation. If you're Peter Sagan and you're getting €5 million a year, okay, we'll sit out the rest of the season. No big deal. But if you're 3/4 of the peloton that are either trying to increase your contract going forward or stay on contract, you don't want to go home. You're desperate to try and get something out of this season so you can, go feed the family and pay the bills.
And if we think back to, back in the dark days when a lot of athletes were doping, it was for those reasons the same, which is desperation, hoping for a better contract, taking bigger risks that you would, we heard that poorly paid athletes, particularly in that under 23 sub-elite contracts, were doing anything and everything they could. And that, Aussies we know that have travelled over to race in, stagiaires as in smaller teams with crappier kind of governance, were surrounded by doping, much more so than in a really professional run team where your equipment was awesome and your coaching was awesome. So this is unfortunately the story about professional athletes where the pool is enormous. If there's 1,000 guys for 50 jobs, then no one is going to put their hand up and go, you know what, this could be dangerous. I think I'll go home, because someone will say, no problem, we're just going to fill your spot with someone else who's more desperate than you.
And that's also the reason that it's been such a challenge to try and get a riders' union together, because if the top guys were to boycott, then the Pro-Conti teams, the Continental teams, the third-level teams will then come in and do those races. They're happy to take the opportunity because they've never really had one voice.
Yeah. Well, what do you reckon, John? You've been on your phone for the last 5 minutes and you're sneezing through answers. What's your take, mate?
I was just answering Dave McKenzie, our guest for tomorrow night, who was ringing in the middle of the show. He forgot what time we're on. So, so what are we talking about again?
Nothing. Don't worry about it. Nothing.
Don't worry about it, John. It's not important, mate.
I'm only joking. I was listening to it.
John, Simon Yates has tested positive for COVID-19 at the Giro. He's out of the race.
It's out.
Yeah, just let you know.
Good on you, Scooter. Yes, thank you. I was the one who told you when it happened, but that's fine.
Oh, I was just checking. I wasn't sure, mate. You know.
Is there any further questions for Bridie before we let it go, John?
No, not from me. It was great to have you on, Bridie. You're a superstar as always.
Anytime. I'm here all the time.
Yeah. But I just, out of all the things we've been talking about, I still can't get my head around how the Tour de France and now the Giro, and they think the Vuelta, which is attracting all these people from all over Europe. Yeah, that is the issue. It's not actually the bubble between the riders. They're fine. As Whitey said, they're safer in this bike race at the moment than they would be sitting at home. It's so unsafe for the general public, and they're just going out and spreading. It's one of the reasons why they've got 25,000 in France yesterday.
It's invisible. That's the thing. If it was a weather event, if it was snowing every day and there was a risk of crashing, it's a very visible way that people can see risk. Or if it was a heat wave, the riders would say, it's 45 degrees every day, we can't do it, it's not safe. But exactly as Scoo said, that it's an invisible threat. People look fine. Lots of people are asymptomatic. So there's a complacency and a denial there. And maybe they'll have political heaters, or we've seen this in the United States with the president testing positive and saying, I'm fine now, I'm fixed. I don't need a mask, everything's fine. So there's some very loud messaging coming from very high-profile people to say, don't worry about it.
I blame Trump for all the issues we've got at the Giro. It's all got to be his fault. And Sam said exactly that. Who's not to say that Simon got COVID from another rider that's asymptomatic? You just don't know. You don't know
could still
how
be in the race.
It.
Yeah, could be still contaminating other people. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, we really appreciate you coming on, Bridie. Fantastic insights. Your lighting is magnificent, so we appreciate you taking the effort for that.
Puts us under pressure now.
I know. But, fantastic work, and we look forward to speaking to you soon.
Thanks a lot. Have a nice night. Thank you.
Cheers, Bridie. Thank you.
Bye.
Bridie O'Donnell. Gee, she's a lot more switched on than I am. I'll give you the tip. What were you going to say?
So what I got out of that, he's angry. He was being diplomatic, but he's just angry with the situation. They're doing everything they can. And we heard this also probably from Whitey during the Tour de France. And, we mentioned this a couple of days ago when we heard about Simon the first time, that they were disappointed with other teams. And I think we've got to a point now where all of the teams are on board and they understand what's at stake here. But then the organisation just haven't really put that through and vetted all of the hotels and the hotel staff. And there is so much at stake when you're talking about professional livelihoods. All of these riders, I know from the Mitchelton-Scott team, most of the teams had their salaries reduced this year while they weren't racing. And obviously there was no revenue coming in for the teams. There was no marketability with no races for the sponsors. Now they're back racing again. They're desperate to try and recoup their lost earnings throughout the year. And what's at risk? Could be just a waiter that doesn't really care.
The problem is you guys know from running events, they're scrambling. Like the dates got changed, and then all of a sudden you're looking for those hotels, and then suddenly you're going, hang on, we had that hotel booked out a year in advance. Now we don't. And they're scrambling to fill these positions, and then they're like, oh, well, we've got bookings as well. They can't really – they're just scrambling at the last minute. It's almost as if you just needed a blanket set of rules for each hotel. But even then – you can put in the rules, regulations, fines. You're still relying on people doing the right thing. And then, that's where society as a whole, every time we fall over because all it takes is a handful of people and that's it.
Yeah, and they're listening to Trump, as you said before. So that's
It's Trump's
the
fault.
unfortunate thing. It is.
Blame him
It
for
is.
this whole scenario at the moment.
But you know
Trump.
what? When you think about it,
John, you need to clear your throat half hour before the show. Just-
When were you tested last?
They've put a 9-month or 10-month season. They've tried to do it into 3 months, which has been an amazing challenge. And so far, they've almost gotten away with it. Now, unfortunately, 2 of the biggest one-day classics have been cancelled, and the Vuelta is going to be. Remains to be seen whether we can get to the Vuelta. I have my doubts, but it might end up they run it and don't go to Madrid. That's a possibility. But even where you spoke last night, Scotty, about Paris Tours, and I thought it had been cancelled. Well, it's not. They're running Paris Tours, so
Even that
obviously
doesn't make sense.
No, but Paris, they're not starting in Paris, of course. So. Where they're going to the area around Tours is not like it is around Roubaix. It's not a hotspot, so they're able to do it.
Is this true, what John says? Surely masks are only placebo. If the virus is present, it will still enter your body through your eyes. Can it go eye to eye?
No.
Eye to eye. No, well, it has to be airborne to do that. So someone has to cough or perhaps sneeze for it to then be airborne. Or scream and shout, or it's like choir's a band at the moment. So once it gets airborne, it could go into your eye or through your ear. The mask is obviously what's the first thing you can do to protect other people from catching it if you have it.
John Stevens, he was the lead singer for a little while with ACDC, didn't he? Join him for a little while.
ACDC,
Noiseworks.
Noiseworks. That's right.
Yeah. I think he did a stint with INXS.
That's right.
He did too.
Yeah.
And got the lemon and sauce.
Yeah.
So let's continue down the music path. What else are we listening to?
Now, John, yesterday you were shown up by Matt Keenan when it came to the plug for Mitchelton. You've psyched yourself up for today's show, and you've openly stated, no pressure, that you're going to do the best rap for the Mitchelton winery. Now it's time, mate. Give us your best.
I didn't say that I was going to do the best. I'm going to do better than what I've done before, which is not that hard, but that's fine. Here we are. Look at that. The beautiful Mitchelton Hotel. So experience the history, the beauty, and the serenity of the Goulburn Valley. The Muse restaurant. Explore the seasonal menus with wines perfectly paired. It's now famous for its weddings. The best place for a wedding is Mitchelton Winery on the beautiful Goulburn River just out of Nagambie. That iconic tower that you see there in the background, you just see the views of the whole area. The cellar door, you can book a wine tasting. You've got a fantastic day spa just in the top part of that hotel there, where you can quiet the mind, unwind the body, rediscover your balance in a setting of peace and harmony. So get up there, fellas. As soon as the lockdown is unlocked, get up to Mitchelton Winery for a wonderful weekend experience.
Yeah, that's your best yet. Well done, John. That's great, John. Sensational. Now,
can we just tape that and play it so I don't have to try and do it again? Just keep playing it every day, every week.
Well, Jerry's lost interest in footy, so he's probably watching that. That's great. All right.
Along with me. Yes.
Yeah. But here's a quick word from our mates at Bike Exchange.
Look at this bike. You think it's just a bike, right? But it's not. It's a bike 374 people are looking at. This guy, this girl, them, all looking at it. People from here, there, and wherever this is. People that are looking for a bike. Or just a piece of it. Amateurs, semi-amateurs, and pro-amateurs. This guy wants this bike, but with this crank and these bars. This could be the perfect match. But not this one. This girl has a bike to sell, and thousands of people might purchase it. Eyes on Bikes help grow small businesses. His, hers, yours, and the latest data and insights help those businesses keep moving. We are the world's #1 bike marketplace, with over 500,000 products and 900 brands, where buyers and sellers are brought together in a place where a bike is never just a bike. Bike Exchange, where the world buys, sells, learns, and rides.
Thanks again to our mates at Bike Exchange. Now, social media is lit up. I'm sold, Johnny. Well done. Nice work, Iffy. Hand claps. With that sponsor read, should get John to give COVID directions to the public in Europe. That will get them through to them. Great job, Iffy. And then the last one from Scott McGrew. Great plug, John.
It was good, John. It was good.
Now, before we get to our tips, we've got our segment that we always look forward to, the Detour DeLorean.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Now, the Detour DeLorean's all about lifting the spirits. We've been obviously going back over, backstage passes and things like that. But I wanted to make it about, it doesn't have to be cycling. It can be all sports. And last night, I witnessed something that, geez, it made me feel good in sport. So this is my highlight, almost my highlight of the year for the Detour DeLorean. Let's have a look.
Gary Rowan plays on and across the ground. They've got a couple of options. That is just too easy. All on his own, Duncan, and he squares it now for Guthrie. I think we're all a little shocked. It is a pounding.
Mate, absolute pounding. Collingwood were useless. You had no right to be in the finals if you're going to dish up performances like that, John. Absolute disgrace. But
how the Hawks going, mate? How the Hawks going?
3 flags in the last 10 years. Yeah, no, we've been going pretty good, mate. How you guys going?
Heroes, mate. Yesterday's heroes. Yeah.
Yeah. No, so I thought the Detour, shout out to your wife, Kay, the Mighty Catters, gave you absolute bath. And Tim Parker, go Cats. So there you go.
Hey, to the international...
living in Geelong when you're barrack for Collingwood this weekend, I can tell you.
For all the international viewers, that's Australian rules football. They wouldn't
Australian
have a clue what's going on there.
No. But anyway, stage 9, boys. Here's a market.
Oh, okay. That's interesting, isn't it? I think this is going to be a race for the overall classification. Now, there's obviously a chance that a breakaway will go early, and the GC guys, they don't have to race for the stage win, but they're just trying to beat each other. I really think with the weather that we've already spoken about, that's potentially going to hit the Giro in the last week, which may cancel or shorten some of those big mountain stages. Then you've got, obviously now, the first time in one of the Grand Tours this year, we've got a rider that's tested positive for COVID-19. I think the GC guys need this stage. They have to come out fighting for the overall win in tomorrow's stage, just to make sure they're in the position in case something goes drastically wrong over the next couple of days. So I think Vincenzo Nibali, for me, is the man that's going to take the stage.
Yeah, right. He wasn't even on the top 8. So he'd be juicy odds. I'm sure some of our sicko punters will be looking at the prices. Yeah.
Yeah,
I also think there will be a great race for the GC, but there'll be 2 races. I think a break will go, and I think a break will get quite a good lead, enough to win the stage. And I reckon Jack can win it. Jack Haig.
You reckon?
Yep, he gets in that breakaway. He's such a strong climber. And I see the experts think he's right up there as well.
Yep.
Well, the other experts.
The other experts.
That would be great.
Yeah.
I hope you are right. Absolutely. I want Jack Haig to win. Lucas Hamilton would be another one. It'd be great to have him up there. We heard Whitey say he wants to try and get him up into the top 10.
But they're not going to let him go in the breakaway. They're not going to Jai let go in a breakaway because they're too close. They're only a couple of minutes down, so they're not going to be getting any breakaways. Whereas Jack's 8 minutes down, so he'll be able to get into a breakaway.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, do you know that going back to last night's stage, a lot of controversy around the crashes that happened, and in particular, the one at 45 kilometres to go. They have a sponsors banner that goes across the road at 45 k's to go every day. Hasn't been a problem up until yesterday. Big wide road, and there was a narrowing because of this banner. And big crash, 3 broken wrists. There are 5 guys that didn't take to the start today. Yeah. So we're actually 14 riders out of the Giro since we started after stage 8. And at the same time at the Tour de France, there was only 8 riders out of the Tour de France. So we've lost more riders here at the Giro, and a lot of it's been from these sorts of crashes. So there's a lot of discussion. Jos van Emden, in particular, from Lotto Jumbo, very disappointed with the lack of safety protocols around things like the banners, inconsistencies from one race to the other. This is the second biggest race in the world, and they're still doing silly things like putting banners across the road and narrowing the width of the road. It'd be a good one to bring in Sam to talk about that.
When podcast fishing again, jeez, it's an easy bite. This is like mud carp down at the Lake Guthridge. How are you, Bills?
Sammy?
Oh, hang on, unmute your mic. Your audio's not working, mate. That's it. How are you, Bills?
All right, just got back from a ride. What's going on, boys?
Good stuff, mate. Hey, I was just talking about that banner across the road yesterday, 45 k's to go, the narrowing of a very big, wide road. The pressure was on, crosswind situation, and it caused a crash that has broken 3 wrists in that one particular crash. 5 guys didn't take to the start today. And Jos van Emden, in particular, was very outspoken about little things like that, the inconsistencies from race to race over basic things about a narrowing of the road without any warning. What are your thoughts on that? You see this in every other race.
Yeah, well, look, there's a lot of talk about safety in the peloton over the recent months, especially after there's been a number of really nasty crashes in situations that probably in reality could have been avoided by just some simple fundamental changes. And one of those things is the narrowing of the roads, the placement of the barriers, the types of barriers they use and how they connect them together. So as bike riders, there's been a big plea from us. We're probably starting to sound like bloody whingers all the time, but we've just been trying to request some fundamental changes to things like that. Like you say, it was crosswinds. You can't predict the weather, you can't predict how the racing's going to go, but you need to be prepared for all situations. And it was a massive wide road. It was a stressful moment, and then you all of a sudden those 3 lanes become 1.5. In stressful moments, there's always going to be crashes, and they're just simple things that don't need to happen. Just simply take the barriers off in that point. 40k to go.
Jules, do you reckon it'll get to the point that the riders will just come together? Because I remember Froome was saying if they don't start sharpening up, they could just say, that's it, we're not going to take the start line. You hope it doesn't come to that, but if it doesn't improve, could it potentially explode?
I don't know. I think that's pretty far-fetched, and I think that would be a long way down the line. And like you say, Jones, we don't want that to happen. It's just a real fundamental issue or inherent issue in cycling at the moment, where the buck is just constantly being passed, and we're not necessarily being heard that much, and so we're trying to create a loud voice. And that's why we probably do sound like whingers, but we actually have no option. We've tried to do it internally through our union.
Bills, how do you get that union to get some strength? At the moment, it's a paper tiger. And I know most of the riders aren't happy with the way it's run. There's got to be a better voting system that gets that union to really be the voice of pro cycling.
Well, they have the voice, and they have the strength. It's just unfortunately they sit on the wrong side of the table. They are in the pocket too much of the UCI, and that's not how a union should work. The union is for the bike riders, so they need to be butting heads with race organisers, with the UCI. That's their whole purpose.
Exactly.
You can't have you don't have a union in a factory that's funded by the owner of the factory, so that needs to change. They need to realise that they're here for the bike riders and come and sit at the other end of the table, guys. That's what we need you to do. And it's really hard to do when you're talking about money and talking about politics and talking about powers and all this stuff, but that's ultimately what we're trying to do, is just create a voice. Say, look, we want to use you guys. You guys do offer a lot of good things. You have, you're not completely useless. And we do respect the fact that you guys have the power to make decisions and be our voice, but you need to do that. You need to be that. You need to do that.
Well, Caroline has made a good point. She said it's not whinging when it is concern for you and your fellow riders. At the end of the day, when you skin it all back, you're just wanting for like a fair system. You're wanting to protect the rider's safety, and you're wanting to have a collective voice, which is fair, which is every cyclist has an equal vote. That should not be overruled. And when they try and twist that Well, obviously there's other things at play. Okay, well, there's financial reasons for you not to understand a fair process. That's all got to stop.
Yeah.
So, it's got to get to the point where it's like, no, that's a fair system and that's it. We're the riders. We're the ones that should have the say. Take it or leave it.
Exactly. And that's what we're trying to do with this change in this voting system within our union, within the CPA. They've had a voting system in place for a number of years now that's, quite frankly, just doesn't work. It's not fair. It's not democratic. So we've been trying to push for that change. They have made some changes recently in the last few weeks around the voting system, but still ultimately haven't achieved what we've asked of them. So hopefully, the dialogue can continue and things can start to improve, so that we don't have to take any of these drastic measures like not starting a race or anything like that.
The thing that you've got where that actually does work is, I think it's obviously happened in the NBA. Nathan here says F1 boycott worked many years ago and still stands. Don't see it happening in cycling, though. I think the biggest issue is you're going to have a lot of teams where there just flat out won't be riders that'll do it. The teams that have got sponsorship that's linked through to ASO and things like that, they're not going to do it. So unless it's a collective voice with the majority, really at the end of the day, you just need the hitters. You need your Froomies, your Gerrants, your Banals, all these guys, your Rogliches, all to come together that have got the power, Sagans. If they have the voice, like what happens in the NBA, if LeBron James says, that's it, we're not playing NBA finals, well, they aren't going ahead. So if you get the right influences, something could happen, but hopefully it doesn't come to that.
At the same time, you need to change that culture, Jonesy, because if it's purely reliant on the big names for it to have any effect, that's also crap, because it doesn't matter if you're Peter Sagan or Sam Bewley. I'm still doing the same thing. And the problem with that mentality, in a sense, is that you get cycling is continuously recycling bike riders. You have young guys coming in, old guys leaving, young guys coming in. All these young guys who come in, they feel like they haven't got the voice because they're young. They've got to keep quiet. It's up to the older guys to speak out, or the big names and stuff. We actually need the whole peloton. Doesn't matter how old you are, how good you are, how many races you've won or lost. It shouldn't matter, in my opinion. I mean, sure, the social media, you're going to gain way more traction if you're Chris Froome and you have 500,000 followers or however many followers he has. You're going to gain more traction from that, and it's going to have it's going to be heard more publicly. But it's about everybody coming together, and it doesn't matter how old. Young guys are actually the ones that should be speaking up, because it's easy for an old guy to go, this system's flawed, the system's corrupt, the system's shit, but I'll be out of here in a couple of years, so stuff it, That's a bad attitude. The older guys need to be saying, I want to leave this sport in a better position than when I found it. So that's the first thing. And then the young guys need to come in and understand that they have the right to fight for their sport, fight for their future. They're going to be here for the next 10 or 15 years. So they're the ones who can make the real big change. So it needs to be everyone.
No, I totally agree.
The fundamental here is about about safety, and everyone breaks the same. Whether you are Peter Sagan or Chris Froome, as we saw coming back from a broken leg from last year, or a first-year neo-professional, if the race is dangerous and it could have been avoided, we all break bones the same way. And that's just a simple thing to make sure that certain processes and protocols are in place to make sure it's as safe as possible. Sometimes I think the people that are making these decisions, same with the COVID situation, weren't actual riders themselves. They haven't been in the peloton. They don't know how scary it is to be going at 60 to 70 kilometres per hour in a crosswind with barriers that just shoot out from the side of the road. Or I remember Mark Cavendish, a smaller race, Tour of Britain, on the edge of the road, going over the top of a hill a few years ago. You might remember, Sam, crosswinds. They were on the right-hand side of the road, and one of the parked cars stuck out a little bit too far. And Cav was under the wheel trying to just stay there. Bam, hit a parked car. Things like that are just ridiculous. And that's something that it's too late when the race comes through to make those adjustments. You need people ahead of the event to ensure that the playing field is simply safe. You're not going to leave a chair on the court in the NBA finals. Someone's going to trip over it and break something. But that's what we're doing in cycling. We're leaving stuff on the playing field. It's crazy.
And no one's responsible, so they get away with it. There just has to be penalties, and people have to be held responsible. For example, in the Giro the other day, that helicopter flew too low, blew the banner across the road, and a couple of guys crashed. somebody has to take responsibility for that. I don't know who it is. I guess it's the race organizer. They control the helicopter. If they can't control the helicopter, who can? So there needs to be clear penalties and people who take responsibility for it. You can't, keep passing the buck. It's simple as that.
Yep.
Yeah, true.
Very politically fueled.
That's great, mate.
Thanks for having me.
That was bloody great insight.
Like you, Sam. Jump in, hit it with us, and then piss off.
That's it. It's like 2020. You've just made 43. You got caught on the fence, but you've smashed a few sixes, mate. So it was a great innings.
Nice.
Yeah. All right, Bills. Good on you, mate.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, bud.
Cheers,
mate.
Cheers, mate.
That
Hey,
was awesome.
Guys, yeah, it was good, and it's pretty simple, isn't it? When it comes down to rider safety, and John and I, as we've mentioned already, race directors for different events. These are the things that we're looking at when we map the course out to start with, and then when we're getting the course prepared, whether it's national championships or whatever, making sure that everything and the crews we work with are pretty good at this anyway. So when we get to the point where we just do that final check, there's normally not that much to do because we're working with good staff. But if we can identify from a rider's perspective that they're going to come around this corner, they're going to exit at this point, actually, no, that's a bit dangerous. What sticks out there, we need to get that removed. And that's what we do for every race that we go through to make sure it's as safe as possible. It's just crazy that the biggest races on the planet don't actually do it to the same level.
Well, Alan Davis was saying that that the UCI do have a technical advisor that drives the course like about an hour before and goes right over. How he didn't see that those barricades sticking out the 45k to go sign, I don't know, but whatever.
Yeah, and look, they got past the same situation every day up until that. It was just that day the bunch was completely wide. It was crosswind situation. Now, for the next stage, right, stage 9, guys, this is one of the stages that was brought in to replace what was we didn't get to see, which was the opening 3 stages in Hungary. So they've had to scramble, as we said, with the COVID procedures, trying to find hotels. This is one of those stages that they included. And quite interesting, they've scrambled and found themselves a bloody hard stage, that's for sure. And the climb, this is interesting for you, John, because it goes back into your era of racing as well. The finish in Roccaraso, the last time they came up, they had a winner, which was Marino Argentin. It was 1987. He's 4-time winner of Liège-Bastogne-Liège.
Before you finish, who's got the pen? Is that you again, John? You clicking a pen? Is that you, Scotty?
That's not me, mate.
Okay. Yeah, I heard a clicking pen. It's just John.
It's you, John.
I'll tell you where you can stick that pen, mate. It's doing my head in. Now,
Give
Scotty.
me the pen. Drop the pen down.
Yeah. Keep going, Scotty.
So Argentin won 13 stages at the Giro d'Italia, world champion in 1986. If you go back to 1980, they came to this summit finish. It was Bernard Hinault that won the stage. He won the Giro 3 times, I think, Tour de France 5 times. And then you go right back to 1953, it was Fausto Coppi that won at the top of this summit, but we're finishing stage 9 on. And of course, he won the Giro 5 times, 2 times the Tour de France, 22 total stage wins of the Giro. 3 absolute legends of the sport have won at this point in the past. So let's see who it is tonight. Could it be a breakaway? Perhaps not.
Jack Haig.
Jack Haig
could be the man. Yeah, that's why they Nibali. I think it's one of the big GC guys, but we'll just wait and see how the tactics play. Before
we let you go, boys, who's your tip for Ghent-Wevelgem? Here's the top favourites.
Isn't this going to be a race?
Van der Poel, who is due after what happened last week. Mads Pedersen's up there. Sammy Bennett. Caleb Ewan, the Aussie, $21.
Yeah.
Well, Caleb's got John Degenkolb in his team as well, and Degenkolb was second last year. Remember, he crashed out of the tour, so he's on his way back up. So it'll be between them. I think if it's a hard race, it'll be for Degenkolb. If it comes back together, they're going to work for Caleb.
Yeah. Wout van Aert, he might be a favourite, but I'm a big Van Aert fan.
I'll take Van der Poel because the old man said, he's due, and he hasn't been going well on the horses lately, so I'll back him.
The old man. I thought you meant his old man, Adrie Van der Poel.
The emu.
Superstar.
He goes, Van der Poel, he's going to do it. So I'll back the emu.
Couple of outsiders. Alberto Bettiol won the Tour de Flanders last year, 18th at the World Championships on a super hard course a couple of weeks ago. So if you can win Flanders and be in the top 20 at the World Championships, you're on good form. So look out for Bettiol. From Mitchelton-Scott, Mesjek, Luca.
Oh, yeah.
He's on good form as well.
Bloody
so
oath. That's a good one.
Mix. But those two top guys, wow. And
didn't Lucas jump second in this last year? Huh?
I don't know.
So that
Are the men on before the women? That's from Nathan in the Get Wellingham.
I'm not sure. I haven't looked at the start times or lists.
That's
for the
true.
women,
That's
though,
different. Yeah.
Yeah, from what I can see from the start list, Kirsten Wields, who was last year's winner, is not on the start list this year. So, and Grace Brown, I think I said to her yesterday, her and Anna Meek would be a good, double leadership combination. But Anna Meek's not riding, so Van Vleuten not riding for Mitchelton-Scott, so Grace Brown will be their leader. She's on good form. Corin Rivera is another one. Lizzie Armistead, Chloe Hosking, maybe.
That Corin Rivera, she actually lived with me for 4 months in Girona. Yeah, with Amy Bradley, like they needed a place to stay for a couple of months. I said, I've got a couple of spare rooms. And then she goes on and she won Flanders, yeah?
She won Flanders, mate. She's a gun, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going, she looks familiar. Hang on. And I almost blew her up.
How familiar?
No. I almost blew up. We were filming stuff for the AC/DC music video in 2013. And we took the fireworks down to the park and we just needed to fill it with crowds. So there was Amy, Corinne, Sam Bewley and Hepburn. And we let the fireworks go and one of them got stuck. And that's when we were yelling at people, get out of there, just move. And it blew up and missed her by, she could have ended her Flanders campaign. But no, she survived and it was a great clip.
Well, that's what
that was a good clip.
Only in Spain, mate. Only in Spain. Hey, look, both going to be great races. It's always been seen as a semi-classic, but obviously it's a bit more than that. I think it's a great race against Wevelgem. So this is going to be the first time for a little while. Actually, we see Wout van Aert versus Mathieu van der Poel, which Holland versus Belgium in Belgium. This is going to be a great showdown.
Matty Keenan just messaged me and he said, yes, men before women. And he also said, very Gary Ayres, mate. Your Sagans, your Benals, your Froomes, gold. Good on you, Matty. So, that's interesting that they're running the men before the women. That doesn't often happen, but,
Well, hardly ever. So it's good that they're doing that, showing respect. Treat them as equals and they will become that in terms of the way sport's presented.
Bay Classic, we've done it in the Bay Classic, mate.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Biggest race on the planet. Well, outside the Tour, the Giro and the World Tour and the Tour of Spain.
Always said, John, you're a pioneer, mate. You're a pioneer. All right, well, thanks for joining in. That was a great show. Very in-depth discussion. Johnny, you can stick that pen where the sun don't shine, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Rest day edition. We've got Dave McKenzie, yeah?
We have got Macca, yes.
And I'm going to get Neil Stevens, and we'll talk about the Linda McCartney team.
Brailsford.
He's coming on tomorrow. Yeah.
Is he?
Yeah, well, I don't know. He hasn't answered by text.
We should have this conversation. Let's have this conversation.
I wish we had a photo of Dave Brailsford sleeping. I'd love to show that every night. But anyway.
No, we've only got this one. Yeah, there he is.
Rowie.
Come on, Luke, Rowe. We want you on the show.
Okay, we'll tune in tomorrow night. We're going to have Dave McKenzie and possibly Neil Stevens. We're going to talk about the Linda McCartney team and what went wrong. Why did they fold? And I think there's a funny story. I'll see how much Neil's wanting to share, but I've heard him vent many a time about that period. So we'll see how we go.
Boss.
Yeah, we'll see how we go. It could be very interesting. It'd be like that when Channel 9 used to do those true crime stories, with about the mafia and things like that. So stay tuned for that. We'll see you at 7:30 tomorrow. Thanks, boys. Great show. See you then.